Welcome back, everybody. We're going back to Laredo, Texas now, recapping day 3 of Ronald Burgos-Aviles' capital murder trial. The former Border Patrol officer faces the death penalty in a double homicide that prosecutors allege was over child support money. Burgos-Aviles was married with his own children when he had a child with 28-year-old Griselda Hernandez in an alleged affair. In March of 2018, Hernandez reportedly served the defendant child support documents at his workplace, and a month later, police say the defendant asked Hernandez to see their almost 2-year-old son, and they set up a meeting in a remote area near a park. Prosecutors believe the defendant stabbed Hernandez and that little boy to death on that visit to avoid paying child support. On Tuesday, several Border Patrol officers testified about responding to the crime scene after the defendant called 911. They said the defendant's behavior was strange. Burgos-Aviles apparently didn't mention knowing the victims and at times was suspected of contaminating the crime scene by removing footprints and moving the body of Hernandez. The defense challenged the officers by pointing out inconsistencies from before and after Burgos-Aviles was identified as the prime suspect. On Wednesday, key witness testimony came from Elizabeth Stevens, a digital staff engineer at Motorola. She testified about the location of the defendant's police radio around the time the prosecutors believed the murders happened.
That is the location at the timestamp.
Okay. And this one right here?
That's the second location of that times with the 1010 timestamp.
So this right here is from 1010, and then this one was the 949, the one prior to it?
Yes.
Okay. And these are where a power down cycle occurred?
Yes.
And would that be the data that was stored?
That would be a waypoint stored.
On this radio right
yes.
here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The GPS coordinates don't tell you or Mr. Elizondo or any of us what Mr. Burgos was doing in that area at that time, correct?
Correct.
Are not all of the coordinates that the device received during that period of time, correct?
What I don't know is if there were any erroneous GPS locations that were not available at the time of shutdown.
You hear the defense fighting up against that. Brian, what did you think of the witness? I mean, did you find the testimony, the evidence really damning, or was it just circumstantial?
Unfortunately, I'm going to give you the lawyer answer. Both.
Right.
And this is why. There's direct evidence and then there's circumstantial evidence. It all works on a scale. It can be very deep into circumstantial evidence territory or very close to direct evidence. And I think the cell phone information is very close to direct evidence that is damning. What I think this really does is it's the prosecution almost moving a chess piece and saying check. Not checkmate, but check. Because now the defendant has to come up and say, this is why I was in the area and it wasn't criminal. It almost forces him to have to testify because otherwise there's no other explanation other than he is the murderer.
Just really bad coincidence? I mean, Nicole, just because someone's near the site of a murder doesn't mean they had anything to do with it. If you were in the defense seat, what questions would you ask under cross-examination?
I would definitely be asking all kinds of questions about the science behind that GPS location that, you know, in the device that we all carry around in our cell phones. The witness has to really understand the math and the towers that are available so that when they are telling a jury they can tell a location for a person carrying the phone, they have the science to back it up. And right now I would be asking questions about that science.
And it's this police radio. How accurate is that, Brian?
It really depends on the technology within that county or district. The NYPD, which I often cross-examine, I no disrespect, they probably have better technology than most law enforcement in the country. So it depends on who you're asking and what their resources are.
And that would be an interesting line of communication as well, cross-examination as well, talking about the technology itself and how accurate it is. Well, when we come back, the man seen on video choking a homeless man to death in a New York City subway car enters a plea in court. The charges he's facing that could create multiple opportunities to find him guilty. Welcome back to Law and Crime Daily, everybody. Daniel Penny, the Marine veteran charged with choking a homeless man to death on a New York City subway car, pleaded not guilty in court Wednesday morning. Penny is charged with second-degree manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide. So that means that a jury could find Penny guilty of acting recklessly or negligently. He's free on $100,000 bail and he'll be back in court in October. Penny choked homeless man Jordan Neely on a subway car at the Broadway Lafayette Street station. At least 2 other passengers helped keep the victim down. Penny held Neely in the chokehold for several minutes, and a medical examiner determined that's what caused his death. Now, Neely had a history of mental illness. Witnesses told police that Neely started shouting in the subway car about being hungry and not caring if he returned to jail or even died. But those witnesses also say he was not acting violently when Penny suddenly intervened. Penny insists, though, he had no choice. New York's train system is dealing with a spike in crime in what MTA is calling a bad couple of weeks, but officials are assuring the public that crime is still down overall. Last week, there were several stabbings and slashings on the subway, and a man was shot in the thigh, but according to officials, the number of felony assaults and murders is down this year compared to last. So far, in 2023, there have been 152 felony assaults and 4 murders. Hundreds of officers have been deployed to help keep crime down, but the exact number changes depending on who you ask. So Nicole, Penny's defense says that they're looking for people who understand the dangers of the New York City subways to be part of that jury. How important is jury selection in this case?
You can win a case or lose a case in jury selection. So it is one of the most critical phases of trial, and being able to ask questions of the veneer is so important for the lawyers trying the case. It's good the lawyer is thinking now about the types of individuals or jurors he might want to hear the facts of this case.
Brian, we knew that about the manslaughter charge. We knew about this idea of recklessness, but talking about the jury, now there's this other charge, this criminal negligent homicide. Break it down for us, what exactly that means and what the jury would consider.
All right, so manslaughter in the second degree is the highest charge. They did not give Penny an additional charge at the same level or higher, but it's actually a little bit lower. It's what we call an E-class felony. He could do no jail time to up to 4 years. But what does it mean to be criminally negligent when it comes in New York State? It means that you fail to perceive or see an unjustifiable risk, and you commit an act that has a risk of the danger here being death. And it goes further to say, that type of risk is what some of us reasonable people, those imaginable people, would not do, and you have what's called a gross deviation, or you're just far out in left field from what we would all agree is safe. And so it's really just like, I made a mistake that I didn't really know about, but should have known and everyone else knows. Unlike recklessness, where you knew it was a mistake and you still went and did it. It's just a lower standard of knowledge.
And it gives them another option. And Brian, real quick, 30 seconds. You want subway riders on your jury?
If I'm the defense attorney, I do not want subway riders, because I think the people who don't ride the subway have a greater perception of danger in it than the person who goes on it every day. So it really depends on what side you're arguing.
New Yorkers versus, let's say, tourists, different perception of what might be weird and different in the city. Nicole, Brian, thank you so much. Everyone out there, thanks for joining us here on Law and Crime Daily. We're going to see you next time as we discuss justice in America.